Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing-related tweets. So you can subscribe to the channel, hit that notification button so you can get a notification whenever a new video is uploaded. You don't have to watch it if you don't want to, but you've got the option to. If you hit that notifications button, drop a comment, share the video, a like, all that good stuff, help the channel grow. I've literally just done a video on this and it went over 30 minutes long, and I just figured I've gone into far too many intricate details. I'm going to bore people to death. People will turn off after a few minutes and then it's pointless. So I'm going to redo it and try and do it in half as long. Okay, so I'm going to try and talk quickly and I won't go in depth as I did in that video, but hopefully I'll still give you guys, the hardcore fans, enough detail for you to really enjoy it and get your teeth stuck into this fantastic fight between two supremely talented fighters in Canelo Alvarez and Billy Joe Saunders. We'll start off talking about the good things Canelo does, then the good things Billy Joe does, where they can both have success and where they can be exploited, and then I will give a prediction to the fight. We'll start off with Canelo Alvarez. He has evolved massively as a fighter in recent years, as you're all aware. He walks guys down with that high guard and he's got his lead foot constantly invading the space of the opponent. He comes in with quite a wide stance, and what that does, for those of you that have seen the Glavatsky-Okolie breakdown video where I showed a whole bunch of clips, video clips and photos sort of annotating what I was talking about, you will understand that Glavatsky does some of this too. What it helps doing, what it helps to do, I'm trying to speed talk, I can't get my words out. What it helps to do is enables Canelo to put his weight onto his back foot, which means he can have his foot into your personal space as he shifts in closer to you, and all he has to do to then get into your space to be able to reach you as the shorter fighter, because he tends to be the shorter fighter in this division, is shift his weight onto his front foot, and he's closed the range on you. But while he's on the back foot, if you want to land a shot on him, unless you have a massive reach advantage, as we saw a colleague Glavatsky, unless you have a massive reach advantage and you're great at maintaining range, what will happen is that you will have to lean in to reach him, and by leaning in, you come into his space. All he has to then do is straighten up, and he forces you to come to him, where he's able to then counter punch you. If he's not going to lead off, if he's going to lead off and you're not going to lead off, by shifting into your personal space with that lead foot, he puts you under pressure. He does so by using a lot of misdirection. I consider Canelo Alvarez to have one of the, if not the highest IQ in the sport of boxing. He is the master of misdirection. He will move in specific ways, give you a specific look, and from that look he can do a variety of things, and you don't know what's coming. For instance, as he's moving in, he'll slowly lean forward. As he's shifting in, back and forth, he leans back and forth. As he leans in, at the end of that lean, sometimes he'll shoot a jab. Sometimes he'll lean in, not shoot a jab at all, and just step out. Other times he'll lean all the way in, and as he's stepping out and you think he's exiting again, he'll then shoot the jab. So that same look, that same movement, he can throw, or not throw a specific jab. If he dips to the side, he might throw a left hook to the body low. He might throw a left hook to the head. He will shape up in exactly the same way and change the trajectory of the punch at the last second. From there, also, he might not throw a hook at all. He might go with a right hand down the pipe. He might go through it for a left screw shot uppercut beneath your attempted straight shot. He can do a million things like that. Pull counters, slips your jab and comes with a right hand. There's so much variety to what he does. He uses misdirection, like I said, by shaping up in the same way. You don't know what's coming. He'll shape up to do something and he'll actually throw something else. And because he's so heavy-handed, that surprise can be destructive. And because you want to avoid being hit, what can happen is that you'll either try to lead off, and that's when the counter punching comes in, or you're consistently moving, which is energy zapping, or you're rushing your work trying to get your shots off first. Either way, it can look like panic to the judges, and if you're rushing, you're making errors that, again, he can capitalize on. So he really puts guys into horrendous positions. He's so smart, and because he's heavy-handed, he wants you to exchange, and he's so creative, and he's got great elusiveness with that upper body movement. He wants you to exchange with him. He wants you to throw 10 punches to his 10 punches, because he's got like a 45% connect ratio when it comes to power shots, and yet he's very good defensively. So he's figuring, if you're going to throw 10 power shots, you're going to land 2, I'm going to land 4 or 5. I hit harder than you. We'll see who destroys who first, right? That's how he sees it. So he creates these issues. When he does want to close the range on you, though, because he's at his best when he's got a stationary opponent, which means he wants to force you up against the ropes. So what he wants to do, the reason he's at his best is because that's when he lets go of his fluid combinations, okay? hooks off of uppercuts, wide hooks around the guard, followed by straight right hands. Then he mixes and matches and marries it all together, and it's beautiful stuff to behold. One of the things, though, that he does is, apart from throw away shots, to stabilize you and get off those big one-shot power shots, to do that, he wants to close the range. He'll take quite a big step forward, and as he takes that big step forward, he'll step in with the jab. There's a split second there, if you're brave enough, where you will see that, and you can either roll under it, which he can adapt to, and then start changing it to hooks, by the way. Don't get me wrong, he's not one-dimensional by any stretch of the imagination. He makes adjustments. But there is a split second where you can do that, or you can get your shot off first, whether it's a lead uppercut, shot down the pipe, whatever it might be. Canelo Alvarez does a lot of great stuff like that, and he's a nightmare to fight. Billy Joe Saunders, on the other hand, though, he offers a set of tools. If you're considering Billy Joe at his absolute best, because we know you can see a brilliant Billy and you can see a pretty shocking Billy, he seems to fight at the level of his opponent. Now, we'll talk about that, whether he's declined because he's not been great for a while, or whether he's actually just, needing that big challenge, and we're going to see Billy roll back the years. But with Billy, he likes to fight on the edge of range, and he uses a lot of feints. He'll stab out a jab, and then he'll pull away quickly. He'll land a shot and get out. For those of you that have ever been on those weird YouTube nights, when it's like 3 a.m. and you don't know what you're to watch, and you're just going through these crazy YouTube videos. If you ever see a cat fight a snake, you'll know what I'm talking about. The cat will hit the snake. As the snake goes to lunge, the cat's jumped all the way out of range, and then he comes back and pats it again. That's how Billy Joe Saunders fights when he's at his absolute best. He'll stab you with a solid jab, and then he'll step out, he'll pivot out, create new angles on you. And unlike someone like Erislandy Lara, because that's a name we hear a lot in comparison to this fight, Lara's got a much longer reach than Billy Joe Saunders. There's a difference between reach and arm length. Long-time subscribers of Hatman will know that. Reach is, of course, fingertip to fingertip, wingspan, if you've got your arm stretched out to the side. Arm length is the shoulder, the inner part of the shoulder to the end of the fist, which is a more accurate reflection, I guess, of reaching someone's face if you're going to punch them. But I can't find that specific detail available for these two fighters. But when it comes to reach, Lara's got a longer reach than Billy Joe Saunders. But Billy Joe's slightly taller. So in the way that he maximizes that distance between you, it's done in a different way, but they're both good, very good at doing it. Lara will be in and out like an amateur Cuban style, and then he'll move around the ring, jump in and out, whereas and he'll sit on his shots too. Billy Joe Saunders is a little bit different. Billy Joe Saunders will land those shots, and he can also be in and out, but he will get you turning a lot. He'll cut off angles and come over your shoulder, and he'll blind you with a shot, and as he's landed the shot, he's moved to the side, and he does stuff like that, Billy Joe. Very, very creative in his movement when he's at his best. And he's very, very slippery and hard to get hold of easily. And so theoretically, faster foot, changes the angle on you. He's not there consistently to be hit. He doesn't punch with you. So he's got all the tools theoretically to cause Canelo a whole host of problems. However, David Lemieux and Canelo, as everybody knows, are not the same fighter. However, those tools, like we said, that he showed against Lemieux, he could bring to the fore here, and he could have a lot of success. The thing is with Billy, he's not looked like that for a long time. And when you're looking at his last few fights, I thought he did well against Martin Murray. He certainly looks heavier, and he's at super middleweight now. He doesn't, is he not carrying that weight, particularly well? This was a guy who's not a massive middleweight. So having to fight at super middleweight by carrying excess weight when you're a mover is counterintuitive. That's not going to bring you success. And Jimmy Tibbs, the father of Mark Tibbs, who's his current trainer, was his trainer as a kid. And Jimmy, when he first started teaching Billy how to box, he apparently told him, your aim is not to get hit. I don't care whether you hit the other guy or not. This is when he's trying to teach him on his way up, right? I don't care whether you're hitting the other guy or not. I just don't want you to get hit. So as a kid, it was treated almost like a game of tag. So Billy is all about that. Hit and not get hit. And he was a standout amateur. He was the favourite to win gold at the Olympic Games. It didn't go his way. He was upset in that tournament. It was an upset. But the guy that went on to win silver and gold, he'd beaten both of them prior to the Olympics. So it was an upset. He was right up there as a standout amateur. And we know he's got all the skills. He's fought some very good opposition along the way, unbeaten guys that were considered to be 50-50 fights at the time. People have short-term memories. But, the Ryder fight, the Eubank fight, Spike O'Sullivan was considered a tough fight. Andy Lee, obviously, David Lemieux. These were all considered tough fights. I think he was a favourite against Nick Blackwell, but that was a bit of a tough fight coming up. And, you know, William Monroe Jr. was a world level guy, and he's always sort of passed those tests with pretty much flying colours. He has had some stamina issues towards the end of fights, and even then he's never been down. Okay, so he finds a way to survive. But the point is, and again, a lot of that's to do with his movement, his fantastic leg movement, foot movement. He's very, very fast of foot when he's at his best. A lot of people talk about the speed of Billy. It's not so much the hand speed, it's the foot speed. And if he's carrying that extra weight and you're taking that away from him, and he's looking as he's looked in some of his last few fights, against the Sufu, the first 3 rounds, he literally didn't get touched. According to CompuBox, there were no punches landed. He got hurt in the 4th. He recovered and then won the fight clearly, but Sufu shouldn't be hurting him at all. The concerning fight for me is Caceres, because the Caceres fight, Billy did look very heavy. This was on the undercard of KSI and Logan Paul, one of those YouTube channels. So it was a small ring, but it wasn't the size of the ring that caused him an issue. It was the fact that when he was throwing a jab, Caceres was very, very good at punching with him. Every time, what a prime Billy would do, Billy at his best, he'd pop that shot, jab, left hand down the pipe or left hook, whatever it will be, and then he'd be gone. And every time Caceres would try and counter, Billy wouldn't be there. But this is not what we saw in the fight. We didn't see Billy at his best. Every time Billy would try and throw the jab, Caceres would throw this looping shot to the body. He'd land and he'd cause... I mean, he didn't hurt Billy, but he was causing him problems. It was a very close fight going through the 11th round, and then Billy had to put his foot on the gas and go for a knockout, and he turned it into an inside fight. He showed he's got a real inside game, and I've always known that about Billy. I'd seen it in the past. He used his right hand to use head control, to control your head and then throw these vicious hooks where the elbow's sort of coming up, but he's got a really sneaky uppercut too. When he's not tired and he doesn't overload on it, it can be a devastating shot, and it was a massive shot in that fight. He knocked him down, I think, 3 times. The third, he didn't get up, and he was able to win the fight. But if that Billy Joe turns up against Canelo Alvarez, who's now at his peak and who lives for that sort of thing, to counter punch you while you punch, Billy's in serious trouble. Billy has to be at his very best. We have to see a Billy Joe Saunders who's as fast and as fit as he was against David Lemieux. Is that guy even there anymore? Because he doesn't live the life and he's the wrong side of 30. Can he even get as fast as that anymore? And, you know, although I think Billy's, you know, like I said, a superb fighter and he's got that heart in him. You know, he told a story in a recent interview where in the amateurs, he was fighting this Russian guy who was highly rated, and he was told, listen, he's the only guy you need to avoid in this draw. If you avoid him, you could go far in this particular tournament. I think he was 17 or so at the time, and he found that he drew that guy, and he was thinking, okay, well, this is going to be a big task. He was 7-0 down after round 1. It was 4 2-minute rounds. He was 13-2 down. It was a point system, of course, after 2 rounds. So he looked at his teammates and he thought, look, I'm not going to outbox this guy. I'm going to have to go to war. So he said, I'm going to steam him. So he runs over like a steam train, goes straight at him. And by the end of the 3rd round, he's within 2 points of this Russian guy. And then by the end of the fight, he's turned it around. So Billy's got character. I've never doubted that. And the fact that he's come in muscular, he looked like one of those, what's that movie that all the, the movie that all the women used to like with, that dude, Channing Tatum, Magic Mike. He looked like Magic Billy, right? He could have been like a stripper. He looked quality with his physique recently when he put that photo up. He's got the V's, he's got the cuts, but muscle mass, and I don't doubt he won't look like that on the night because he's cutting weight to make weight, right? He'll put that back on, but muscle mass is counterintuitive to stamina. There's a reason that Mo Farah looks like a stick insect, and there's a reason that Yohan Blake looks the way he does, like an explosive athlete. Over 100 meters, 200 meters, Mo Farah's got no chance. Over 800 meters, 1600 meters, Yohan Blake's going to gas, and Mo Farah's going to zoom round him. And so if Billy's looking for stamina, which he's going to need because he's not going to want to be in the pocket too much against Canelo Alvarez, it's counterintuitive to build up too much muscle mass. So if this was back in the day where, you know, there was a time when I would have really fancied Billy against Canelo. I'd spoken about this in the past. Canelo was slow of foot. He hadn't improved in the way he has improved now. And Billy was a lot faster. Now, they've sort of gone in different trajectories. It feels like Billy's declined and Canelo's continued to improve. It may be that Canelo, although he's improved, obviously, he's not quite improved as much as people think. And that instead, what's happened is that by moving through the weight categories as he's come up against bigger, heavier guys, the foot speed or the lack of foot speed isn't as pronounced. because he's not getting in there with a guy like Floyd or Lara anymore, or Austin Trout, or these sorts of guys that gave him problems when he was young. Instead, he's getting in with guys like Callum Smith, with guys like Rocky Fielding, with guys like Kovalev, bigger men who are less mobile. They're not as fleet-footed. And so as a result, it's not going to expose Canelo's lack of foot speed. Instead, it becomes a question of physicality, power, intellect, and all that sort of stuff, where we know that he excels. Well, Billy Joe Saunders, if he's at his absolute best, his fans will tell you, look, he's going to be the sort of guy that can do what those guys did to him. He's a southpaw. He moves the way he does. Billy could be in a situation where he causes this guy a lot of trouble. Having said that, to be really, really quick, one of the things he did against Lemieux, which was fantastic, which he'd want to bring into this fight, first and foremost, fantastic pivot, check right hook. That's going to be vital to keep Canelo off him. Canelo will adjust and look to make that wide. Like I said, he likes to step in with that wide jab, Canelo, as he seeks to close that range, right? As he seeks to close that range, he'll throw that jab with that wide step forward. If he can land a shot, a sneaky uppercut or something like that, come under that lead shot, then pivot out, he can cause problems. It's important though, because I've seen Billy make this error in the past, not to seek to pivot and stay in the center line or just off it. What he'll do, and Billy will often make guys miss by inches, but what he can sometimes do is throw the hook and pivot out, and he sort of stays in the center line. Imagine this microphone, which you can see here, is that my center line, it's in the middle of me. As he punches, he'll end up here. Very slightly as he's pivoting off that lead foot off the center line. What I would want to see him do as he lands that first shot, whether it's a lead uppercut, straight left hand down the pipe, straight right hand down the pipe, or a backhand down the pipe, whatever it might be, look to step out as you do that, throw that shot. When his shot comes in, that's when you can then pivot further out off of the line, off of your initial step. So I want him to be very responsible with creating the space upon his exits and to be unpredictable with those exits. Sometimes Billy will often duck, and we know that a lot, and we know that Canelo will vary that height well with his punches. We don't want to see Billy dipping into shots, right? So he's going to have to be careful with this. A lot of times Billy will build up a lead. So when these guys like Lemieux are looking to headhunt, yeah, that's great when you're then dipping and pulling away and ducking, and all of a sudden they're not landing on you flush. But against a guy like Canelo, who's patient and is not going to headhunt, he might be setting traps for you to fall into those shots. So he's going to have to be careful with that. The other thing, imagine you've got a clock. What he was doing is, imagine at 12 o'clock you've got Lemieux. He would pop a shot at 12 and then step out towards, say, 7:30 p.m. Or step out towards 6, so come back in a straight line, but then move towards 7:30 p.m. So what would happen is he's coming off at an angle. Rather than coming straight back to 6 p.m. where he can be followed, or moving over to 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. where he can be reached with the right hand, he would step off to 7:30 p.m. If Lemieux was trying to come across to cut him off, he's then got the option of coming back to 6 p.m. and escaping, or moving to 10 p.m. and escaping that way. In other words, he was always making sure that the way he was moving, he was always at a far distance from Lemieux's right hand. And that's why you started to see those pivots where he's putting his hand up and he's going, where did that end up? Because he always understood that spatial awareness and the distance with the big, powerful shots of Lemieux. That's going to have to be the sort of Billy Joe Saunders that we see against Canelo, a guy with that level of spatial awareness. It could end up backfiring on him though, because if he's reacting too much and he's giving up patterns without ever holding his feet, Canelo's going to read that. He's going to have to show something to force Canelo to respect him. Now, going back to that issue of muscle mass, I've got a feeling he's going to show a period in this fight where he's going to go for it. Like I said, with that story of the I don't know if I said it in this particular video or the last one now that I mention it, the story of the Russian, I think I mentioned it in this video, but he showed the ability to go to war if he has to, right? If he has to go to war, and against Caceres as well, and he did that knockout and he showed great head control and he went for the head, for the uppercut, he went for it. And there is going to be a time where he's going to have to hold his feet. He's not going to want to do that too much. Ideally, he's going to want to stay away from the big power shots of Canelo Alvarez. He's got character. We know that. Can he roll back the years in terms of physicality? Is he going to be set up with these smart traps that Canelo sets? Thanks for watching. 19 minutes, not too bad. Chat to you soon. Thanks for watching. Take care. God bless. Subscribe. Hit that like button. Comment. Let me know what you think. Chat to you soon.